feel free at any time to visit with the vendors, or also to visit the rooms for the music therapy, to learn more about travel, just all of the things that are going on, because we want this to be a very educational experience. And this is my first time emceeing this event. And so for me, this is also an educational experience to learn more about Parkinson. We do have someone at H&N who is living with Parkinson's, so we do have well, a little bit of familiarity with that. But you and I and everybody else online, hello you, we are going to be learning, and also as we set up the chopping demonstration, just wanted to let you know, as part of that little bit of education here, there are actually quite a few things that I didn't know as far as Parkinson's, and that there is no definitive test available to diagnose Parkinson's. But again, the fine folks from UH over there, along with the high school student from San Jose. I know a little bit earlier Reggie was over there, but once again, they're back there. And as Jerry mentioned, it only takes about 5 minutes, and we will be spending some time online as well, visiting with the sponsors and the vendors. And so those of you who are joining us via the wonderful miracle of the World Wide Web won't miss anything out. All right, Jerry's getting the apron on here. And
getting serious about this.
Yeah, totally serious. So a couple of things here that we need to know about Parkinson, and that there are this is an estimated number of 45-plus-year-olds diagnosed Parkinson's patients in Hawaii. There are 6,800, according to the 2018 Michael J. Fox Foundation Parkinson Foundation study. So there are perhaps more of us out there than you think. The estimated number of people diagnosed with Parkinson's every year in Hawaii, that number is 400. The source there is the December 2020 Parkinson Foundation study. There's an estimated economic burden to Hawaii, and it's $52,000 a person, and approximately half in direct and indirect medical costs. And so, yeah, we're very, very aware of how much the medical impact is in terms of dollars that Parkinson's takes. As far as the Hawaii Parkinson Association, if you're new to the whole HPA experience, it's been around since 1996. And as Jerry mentioned, it's a nonprofit, all-volunteer organization comprised of people with Parkinson's, along with caregivers, family members, healthcare professionals, educators, and leaders in the business community. And we are extremely thankful that all of you are here and all of you are participating this morning and through the day. And so without further ado, I think Jerry, we're ready to chop. All right, here we go.
Except for I'm not going to chop right off.
All
what,
right.
what I'm going to do is I want to talk a little bit about chopping and the way I approach it. Because I'm one of these strange people that I actually like to chop. I like doing the prep work. But the biggest thing I found with chopping is it starts in the brain. Because I use it when I come home from work and, you know, I be stressed out from work. And I focus on my chopping, because if you don't focus on your chopping, bad things happen. Cuts, chop off your fingers, stuff like that. So I use it as a way to clear my mind from the day's work. And then I kind of refresh myself. So I try to pay close attention while I'm chopping. And then the other thing, when you have to find a blade that suits you. This is the blade that I use. You can see the size of it, kind of the heft. For me, it's kind of neutral. It's a Hinkle 4-star, so it's pretty good quality of knife. And I've had this for probably over 20 years. 30 years, I've just corrected. But then, what is the most dangerous knife itself? And that is the dull knife. And I say that because the dull knife you don't respect. And if you don't respect a knife, it will come back to haunt you and it will bite you. And so I won't say my knives are always, you know, razor sharp, but they're good enough that I know if I don't pay attention, I will hurt myself. Now, there's a couple other types of things that when I got Parkinson's, I had to change some of my techniques. One of the things that you can do is buy gloves like this. And this is a cut-resistant glove. It's infused with Kevlar. And so, I mean, I can take it and do that, and it doesn't leave any kind of mark. They come in, we get them at Amazon. They're fairly inexpensive, and they can protect your hands, but not if you stick the point into the palm, because the Kevlar does not stop a pointy object. It does stop the cutting motion. So there are different types of Kevlar gloves. And so when we do this, we try to pick the right tool for the job. And if I handed this knife to Janice, she can use it, but that's not her preferred knife. Through trial and experiment, she has a different knife, and I don't even use, I use several knives depending on the job I'm doing, whether I'm skinning something, deboning something, or just chopping. So today we're just going to look at chopping. And remember, not everything has to be chopped. For the salad we're making today, what we were going to do is we started out that I was going to chop them just because of the demonstration, but then we figured out that it would be easier to use like a food processor on it to get it down to a small dice like we want it. But to do that, we want to peel it first, so quick and easy. And you notice sitting up here with, I do have some tremors, even though the medication's doing a pretty good job, but where both my wrists, both my wrists are actually in contact with the cutting board. And let me show you the cutting board real quick. This is actually a new one that we've got. It's got a rubberized grip on it, so it doesn't slide around. But on this side, it's also got a texture pattern to help me hold the food in place. And that's kind of the key, is keeping your, just like when you walk or you're standing, you want to keep your base steady. You want to do the same thing when you're chopping. So I usually put my hand like this, and I'm not as fast chopping as I used to. Yes, I'm peeling right now, but that was a general comment. But I try not to get into a hurry, because again, when you're hurrying and you're not paying attention, that's when you start to have a problem. And don't be afraid to, if you need to stop in mid-stroke, or mid-peel in this case. And some people like to take the carrot and just go like this. Well, for me, that doesn't work because of the incidents. And so we get the, yeah, got my trash over here. Always have yourself a trash bag too. That way you don't have to go in search of, and you don't stack up stuff on your cutting board. It kind of keeps your surface clean. And one of the big changes I've really made is I used to stand at the counter and chop, and early on in my diagnosis, I found that the counter was too low, and so I started stacking cutting boards up to make it taller, but that was kind of unsteady, and so we found a guy at Hawaii who sells slabs of wood, and we went and picked one out, and he cleaned it up, and so now I have a cutting board that's about 6 inches in diameter, or 6 inches thick, to get it up high, but it's a good, steady, solid cutting board. Again, the tools are very important. So Janice is taking, and she's just shredding, using a hand shredder, shredding the carrots, while I go on to the stuff that we do want to chop.
Okay, but at home,
Oh,
because we make a large amount of this salad, I do put the carrots in my food chopper.
yeah, the other thing that I was going to say about changing my technique is, instead of standing up, I now sit down. I have a bar stool, because we have a bar, and I commandeered the end of it, and I sit down on the end of the bar, so I minimize my steadiness, because even here you can see some of the dyskinesia. It's got me weaving a little bit, but I want to stay as steady as possible. And so I just, take my time, keep my wrist down, This is where it's important to have the sharp knife so you can actually make these types, or you can get a little more practice, you can go a little faster, but I never go too fast. And a lot of times they tell you to move the vegetables and move them with your fingers. Sometimes I do, but a lot of times I'll put the vegetables next to the knife, I'll shove the whole thing over, and then I come back and start chopping again. And as I get down close to my fingers, notice I quit talking so I could concentrate and make sure I didn't chop my fingers up. One of the other tools that I like, we got this from Pampered Chef, and it's just a scraper. You can use it, you know, scrape, make a pile. But you can also do this. A lot of people like to take to use the knife to scoop up the vegetables. But what you're doing when you do that is you're running the blade into your hand. And from a safety perspective, that's a really bad idea. So these scrapers, and they have plastic ones like this. They have various different types. I find really useful, and I use it for a lot of different things. It's actually made for using with dough, but I use it for, you know, picking up vegetables. And the more you do, you change. When you first change your techniques, you have to consciously change it, and then you, as the more you do with it, the more it will start coming natural. And when we cook, I normally sit over there at the end of the counter and chop while Janice is pretty much running the rest of the kitchen nowadays. And so she's got stuff on the stove. A lot of times when I get done, she'll take the cutting board away, put it in the dishwasher. And so she's doing a lot of the other things because that's kind of the way we've evolved it. What I'm doing here is I kind of cut off the end because, you know, a typical stalk of celery gets bigger as you go down. So I'm trying to set it up so that I'm just making straight cuts or perpendicular cuts.
It's pretty tasteless too.
And so I cut off the end so that the piece that I'm left is basically uniform throughout. And then keep everything, when I do this, I get everything set, put my knife, my fingers are actually touching the board, and then just go through. Then I come back and chop these pieces down. So a lot of it is repetition, but a lot of it is paying attention. And this is where, if you got kids running around or grandkids running around, my recommendation is, you know, just set stuff down, find something that where you're not going to hurt yourself. But you got to pay attention to what you're doing. I was fortunate. I grew up in a house where we dealt with a lot of knives in the routine course because I grew up in the farm world. But not everybody has that experience. And you notice when I was just wiping the pieces of celery off, I started from the thick side of the blade, went down, and so I wasn't coming anywhere near the sharpened edge. Yeah, well, you've been seeing me chop. You can see how sharp the knife actually is.
Yes.
Threw some celery into her lap. So
Not a dog.
let me ask, is there any questions on what I'm doing? Anybody have any questions that I can answer? Online, if you have any questions, feel free.
One thing, we didn't mention what we're making here. We're making what's called a bean salad. And it started off with a very southern recipe, and we changed it and made it very, I call it Polly, We put edamames in it. We put macadamia nuts in it. And the dressing, when I got this recipe, was for French dressing. And we got the recipe for papaya seed dressing from the chef who was the last chef that worked at Don Ho's restaurant. And it changed everything. Made a whole different taste. But it's still pretty good. This salad is gluten-free, low calorie. What else did we say? Vegan,
Vegan, yeah.
because you use oil and olive oil to make the dressing, but there's no dairy in it. I don't know if it's keto or not, but
It's got lots of edamame, so it probably is. And I really like it. I could take a spoon and just sit there with a big tub of it and just eat it. So when we make it for an event like this and people don't like it, that's okay with me because that means more for me.
yeah, you'll get to try it later. Because there's one sitting in the kitchen.
You know, that's what we were doing last night is we were putting together all the stuff for today. I was sitting there chopping and she was sitting there shredding the carrots to make for the salad for today.
And prepping.
And just showing that we actually do cook, and we happen to be people that we like to cook. We've always liked to cook, and this is the way at the end of our day we're able to share what's happened in our day over food. A lot of people like to have a glass of wine while they're preparing. If I'm doing heavy knife work, I usually won't have the wine or a cocktail until after I'm done, just for safety reasons. I could, because I've got a pretty high tolerance to alcohol, but it's just better if I don't. And
The reason that he ended up doing most of the chopping is I hated chopping onions because the smell gets on my hands. I can't get rid of it. I've tried everything. Finally, a stainless steel spoon works a little bit. But he didn't mind chopping onions. He doesn't mind chopping garlic. So here you go. And so we were kind of concerned that the Parkinsons might change all that, and I would have to chop onions.
But actually, in one respect, the Parkinson's has kind of helped me out because one of the earliest sign that I had of Parkinson's that we did not recognize until years later was a diminished smell. Probably familiar for a number of you folks. And so because I have a diminished smell, chopping these loud-smelling fruits and vegetables doesn't bother me because I don't smell them. Sometimes the onion with the high sulfur content will be in the vapors, and that might make my eyes tear up a little bit. But other than that, I can chop just about anything, and it doesn't bother me.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell them about the refrigerator smell.
We're very fortunate. We've been married just over 30 years now, and we're one of these couples that doesn't argue very much. And when I was about the time I was being diagnosed with Parkinson's, we were having a few more disagreements. But what they were was Janice would open the refrigerator, and she would smell something going bad. Well, because my smell was, we didn't know it was Parkinson's at the time, because my smell was diminished, I thought she was being hypersensitive. She thought I was being obtuse. And so we would have to have a little heated discussion about if there is actually things going bad. And so it wasn't until several years later when we were talking to, I guess, one of the docs or one of the drug reps, that we really understood that the loss of smell was related to the Parkinson's. And then the light went off of why she could smell stuff that I couldn't. And so it's kind of our one of our illuminating stories that's kind of funny. One thing that I do like to pass on, and this is not related to chopping, is when we talk Parkinson's and medications, not all side effects are bad. I used to get migraine clusters. Every 5-6 weeks I get 3 or 4 migraines. And for those who've had migraines, you know how much fun that is. Well, when I was diagnosed by Dr. E and started seeing Dr. Ross for part of the drug trial, and then as part of the VA, the first drug they put me on was saligeline. And after a while, we kind of noticed something. Ever since I've been on saligeline, which is 9.5 years now, I haven't had a migraine. And Dr. Ross's preferred medication at the time was residuline, which is related to saligeline. But after we talked about it, and he did some research and found out while this is not a common side effect, it was not unheard of, we decided to stay with the saligeline because of the positive effect that I got from my migraines from the saligeline. So I always try to use that when we talk about medications, and everybody wants to emphasize all the real bad things that can happen. I wanted to try to keep things in perspective, and sometimes good things can happen as well. And that is one I'm very glad. If I never have another migraine in my life, I will be more than happy for that. And Janice used to be a migraine a day sufferer as well, but she's been seeing one local neurologist who uses Botox as part of her treatment, and it reduced her migraines by 85 to 90%. Now working with the insurance companies on that has become a challenge because the insurance companies think that they're all Botox is for cosmetic purposes. That's not true, and they are using Botox I know they're using it for some Parkinson's stuff. So this is going on. I think I got most of the celery done anyways. Everybody sees what this is. These get to be a little more of a challenge because they're not all curved in the same way. They kind of roll around. So the technique is basically the same. I just try to get them all lined up, the same way. Keep my fingers back out, and then just little chops at a time. I did 3, move my fingers back some, do 3 again. Notice I'm trying to, if I don't always exactly have my wrist touching down in this one, but you notice the fingers, I'll move this other way. The fingers got everything kind of wadded up, and I'm pushing down on the board, and that's my stable point there. So I always try to have a stable point, because if I'm sitting up here trying to chop something and the hand's doing this, it's not a very good chop and it's not very safe. So, and a lot of times I'll get down towards the fingers and I put the knife on and just kind of hold it in place while I inch my fingers back. Then I do a few more chops, get some of the stuff out of the way, and try to keep where you're working comfortable to you. Because for me, right in front of me, where I can concentrate on it and I can see it, and my shoulders are pretty square to it. Because some people like over here, because of their Parkinson's causes different types of movement. Some will want to be over here. It's wherever, like so much of your Parkinson's, wherever you are comfortable with it is where you want your focal point of your chopping to be. Thank you. And, take your time. Don't be afraid, especially when you get down to the greens. It becomes a little more challenging. So I just take my time, and we've learned that if we're doing a recipe that requires a lot of chopping, then I start a little bit earlier because it's going to take me a little bit longer to get through it. Like when we went to New Orleans cooking school for one of our anniversaries a number of years ago, and we learned how to make chicken and andouille gumbo. And so we learned how to make chicken and andouille gumbo. And when you do it, it's a recipe of patience because you got to do a lot of chopping with the Trinity, bell peppers, celery, and onions. Then you got to cut up the chicken. You got to cook the sausage, cut up the sausage. And that's before you start really making the core roux to make the gumbo itself. You can see how easy it was to pick up the vast majority of that onion. So there's the last of it there. So when I'm doing that much chopping, especially if we have a bunch of tailgate friends who love our gumbo, and so there was a time when we were making double batches. So chopping 4 cups of bell peppers and 4 cups of onions and 4 cups of celery. It can take a while, but there are tricks and techniques that you can use to help that out. And then we get to the meats. One of the things we do for cutting up the meat is we put it in the refrigerator or the freezer for a few minutes to firm the flesh up. And that really helps when you go to cut it. It makes it a lot easier. But you want it, especially if you're working with the meats, keep your hands dry. I almost never touch what I'm chopping with this hand because this is my knife hand, and I want to keep the handle of my knife clean and dry so that it doesn't slip. Because even though I've got a spot here, if my finger goes down over the blade, then I'm going to end up with one of the scars that she's got. And she has a few.
I'm a danger.
So you want to keep that hand clean and dry of any debris and things like that. And then the other part of the gumbo is making the roux. And when we went to the cooking school, the way they taught us to time it, they call it a 1 beer, 2 beer, 3 beer roux. And you used to drink a beer, normal speed, you don't chug it or anything, while you're sitting there stirring the roux, the flour and the oil that's cooking. And so if you want a light roux where it's still kind of pale, 1 beer. You want a little bit of flavor, a little more nutty flavor to it, a little bit darker, 2 beers. And if you really want a dark roux which has a lot of nutty flavor, but you got to be careful not to go too far and burn it, and that's a 3 beer roux. Now I had some stomach problems about 15 years ago and had some surgery, so I had to stop drinking beer. So I drink glasses of wine now. And so there's other ways to improvise, adapt, overcome. Janice is right, she reminds me, I don't open a full bottle. I have half bottles specifically designated essentially for this purpose, which is about 2 glasses. And then things have sped up a little bit since I've kind of changed pots too. But it's very important when you're making a roux, just like when you're chopping and doing a lot of cooking, that you pay attention. And so what I do is I move my chair, my bar stool over by the stove, and I just sit there either with a whisk at the beginning, and I have a special roux paddle that I bought from New Orleans Cooking School that I sit there and stir. And if it's a slow day, I'll be stirring for 45 minutes to an hour. And if one arm gets tired, then I turn my chair around and stir with the other arm. Again, it's the improvise, adapt, and overcome mentality that we as Parkinson patients have to have for doing so much stuff. So, and then there's other secrets for cooking good, making good gumbo, but you have to catch me offline because I don't share all my secrets on that. I lie. I tell everybody what I do, and really the big other secret is the spices. Everybody's heard of Emerald Bam. We use one from the cooking school called Joe's. And what I do is if you put it in once, just in accordance with the recipe, then it kind of soaks in and you don't taste it anymore. And so when we're cooking it, when they call it they say put the spices in, I put it in for the first time, and we let the gumbo simmer for about an hour, and then go back and taste it. and it's getting kind of bland, I'll put some more in and simmer it for a little while longer. Then we take it off the heat, just kind of let it cool and put it overnight. And then when we're ready to use it, we'll bring it out and put it in a crock pot to reheat it. And as it heats back up, I'll taste it again and see if it needs a little more seasoning. Now, I like seasonings. I like strong flavors, so I sometimes have to watch it because sometimes I'll add spices and people will take a taste of it and go, "Oh, that's hot." But that comes from growing up in Southern California and traveling a lot to the Far East. But that's the other big secret I find for cooking gumbo. But so much of it with the Trinity and everything starts with the chopping. And like I said, you got to start, since I'm slower now, this is about the speed that I do vegetables at home. It just takes a little longer, so you start a little bit earlier. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll get up in the morning and have a little breakfast, and then I'll sit down and start chopping the vegetables. And I found that the Zippy's chili and chicken container, that round tub, is perfect size with a nice lid. That's what, when I chop and I put all the vegetables in that, then put it back in the fridge until we're ready to actually start cooking it. And so that's my gumbo story. I don't even know what time it is. How are we doing on time, Ben?
Yeah, we're doing all right.
Give about 8 minutes.
All right, like I said, I've been yapping about. Is there any questions I can answer or lie to you about? Equal measures.
Also, just wanted to say, you can ask questions here, but also if you are joining us online, you can put it into the Zoom comment section, and you can ask there, and we'll relay it over to Jerry and Janice. How are we doing with all the chopping? How close are we to actual salad there, Janice?
Put the dressing
Oh,
in.
look at that! She's shaking the dressing already. What kind of dressing do we have there?
It's papaya seed.
Papaya seed. All right, awesome.
Okay, from Don Ho's. You can see it. I can't see it. You may have to stand up.
Yeah, so putting in dressing is it's an art more than a science. But it's always, like a lot of cooking, it's to taste. And
When we first did it, made the thing up, I dumped the whole recipe into the salad.
which was like 30 ounces.
Yeah, because it's 2 cups of oil and a cup of vinegar. So, that's a lot. And so you put it in the refrigerator, and then you're supposed to, leave it overnight. And you're supposed to let it come back up to room temperature before you use it, and you're supposed to drain it. And,
You didn't bring your spoons, did you?
oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Randy Hiraki.
Randy,
He's back there. Randy Hiraki. Where's he at?
he's right
Yeah.
there.
Randy Hiraki.
Randy Hiraki, please move forward.
Bruce.
Jerry's trying to call you.
No, we need spoons. Randy, grab a handful of spoons and bring them up here, please.
There we go.
Oh, he's trotting up, doesn't have the spoons. Randy, bring a handful of spoons up to the front, please.
He's just bringing himself.
He's not listening. I need a handful of spoons, please.
Two or three just spoons off the counter. Just spoons.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we found that was a little too much dressing. So now we don't use it all.
Yeah, 'cause
And we
one-
let it sit, and then we find that you don't really have to drain it. It absorbs enough that it's just steady. And it's got it. I use rice vinegar. We found that using a whole cup of rice vinegar made it very piquant, really, really strong. So I cut it back 3/4 of a cup of rice vinegar, 1 cup just plain vinegar.
All right. One of the things that I wanted to finish up with the knives is the knife care. Good knives, like good pots and pans, will last basically a lifetime if you care for them properly. And so this knife has never been in the dishwasher. This knife has been hand washed the entire 30 years that we've had it. Then I try to, when you put them in like a wooden block, most people, you know, a lot of times they'll go in this way. Don't put it in that way. Actually turn it over and put it in this way. Because if you put it in this way, you're putting it on the blade. All you're doing is every time you put it in or out, you're dulling the blade down, which means more sharpening. And when you sharpen a knife, no matter what method you use, what you're doing is actually removing metal from the blade itself. And so if you've seen a blade that, you know, an older gentleman, a Capone, has had for his whole life and he sharpened it his whole life, a lot of times the blade, instead of being straight, is now curved because he's continually taking metal off when he's sharpening it. And so your kitchen knives are the same way. If you have a good kitchen knife that works real well for you, we use one of the blocks that they go in sideways, so we don't have that problem where it gets onto the wood. But there are a few like for your steak knives down at the bottom, and so when I put those steak knives in, I do put them in upside down. So that's just kind of a little hint about knife care. And then when you clean them, soap and water. I put them in the sink because we hand wash all of our good Calphalon pots and then our Hinkle knives. And so just good hot and soapy water and a little bit of a scrub pad. Well,
It needs more carrot.
really?
And it's.
We got some more.
Well, no, it's a little too early because the edamame are still a little bit cold.
Yeah, I'm a big edamame fan. So we put a lot of recipes that call for peas. We throw edamames in for me because I like the texture. I like to be, you know, peas. You cook them so much and you cook them to death, and there's kind of this mush, no flavorless mush to me. And so I take edamames, which have decent flavor, but they also have this nice texture.
I might need a little more dressing too.
Okay, let me try it from my perspective. No, I think dressing's okay.
Okay.
And you can, like I said, this is all to taste. For me, this is what I like, but if you want to add salt and pepper, you can always add salt and pepper as well. But it's just something that evolves over time.
It is 10 o'clock, time for break.
No, 10:15 is when
10:15? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
she was trying to get rid of us early. And, but if
I want, any questions?
go ahead.
Nobody?
Anybody have any questions about chopping, the recipes, the dressing?
Well, I'll ask you guys, how many people chop? Parkinson patients specifically. Anybody chop besides me? Yeah, I saw some hands
Yeah,
going.
over there, back in the corner.
regular ones. Okay, now anybody, how many people like to chop like I do? I'm the only one that likes to chop, but a number of people do it because it's necessary for cooking. And a lot of what we talked about today applies to anybody when they're doing these things. If you're transporting knives, please use, you know, some sort of safe blade. This one's, you can get at most cooking stores.
No, put it in.
And it
No,
just,
no, no.
I didn't want to put it in there because the knife's dirty, so we don't get the dirtiness in there. But you always want to transport a knife where you're protecting the blade. You're protecting the blade from you, and you're protecting the blade from itself. I mean, you don't want to hurt the knife, and you don't want the knife to hurt you. So you always, a lot of people forget that when you go tailgate, they just grab a knife. And for tailgates, that's kind of a different type. We have a inexpensive knife that we take, and I think it was like a $2.99 before I got married type of knife, and we take that to the tailgate. Sometimes it comes home with us, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it finds its way home later on. And the same thing with
Sometimes it gets so-
other utensils, you know how it is. We have a whole big tub of utensils from tailgates. We used to do a lot of tailgating down in Rainbow Bay Marina when football was still at Aloha Stadium. No political statement there, but I'd like to see it come back. And so we always had a lot of people, and so they're always bringing stuff, and we're always going home with containers and utensils, and we wash them up, bring them back the next time. And it's amazing how expensive some of this stuff is that people forget, including knives. But we try to make sure they get back to their owner if they're labeled or something like that.
Hey, Jerry, we do have a question.
Yeah.
From online, one of our online participants, Fran, is asking, can we please share the recipe or post it later?
We will.
Yeah.
All right.
Tell them the hard part, because we were talking about this last night.
Oh. So some of it doesn't tell you what to do with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the recipe, the original recipe I had came from a Southern grandmother, and you read the recipe and it just says 4 carrots. Okay, what do I do with 4 carrots? You know,
She wasn't very good at the details.
It was not in the details for her, but it's very simple. The hardest part is the dressing. Yeah, it's just because you really need a blender, and you need papaya seeds. Now, I have several Ziplocs full in my freezer, because every time we have papaya, I take the seeds and put them in the freezer.
Because we freeze the papaya seeds.
And they're good. You know,
And we've got friends that give us papayas, and so we split them and get them. And we don't try to separate out the seeds. We keep everything.
a little bit of stuff. But see, it looks, if you can see, it looks like it's got pepper in it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't.
That's because the papaya seeds are blended
Yep.
in as well?
I say I frappe them. I turn it up as far as it'll go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other secret to it is Dijon mustard.
You don't what?
Dijon mustard.
Dijon mustard.
Dijon mustard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we use a decent Dijon mustard. We've been working on updating our website, and one of the new things on the website is Jerry's Corner. And so for the next Jerry's Corner, I will post that menu here, or that recipe here, hopefully in the next week or so. Get that up so that people can go in and pull that down. So I did kind of anticipate that people, because I really do like it. And
Like I said, I've never written down the changes that I made to it.
so this will force her to.
What's the break at 12:30?
12:15. Well,
Yeah,
12 to 12:15.
12. There at that break, you won't taste this one because it's not ready, but everybody will be able to have some of the one that's in the refrigerator.
Yeah, and if anybody does want something to eat or drink, we do have some snacks back there, and we're going to have some stuff coming in throughout the day from
Yeah, he's
From a
going to change.
donor.
Yeah, Lisa's going to get some berries ready in about couple of
so we
minutes.
got some
Berries and some crackers, and
But then we have
got to keep you energized.
we got some manapua and some other stuff
But
coming
no,
in later.
that's later.
I said later. So we got some stuff coming in later on, kind of a little variety for folks who have the gumption to stick around for the whole day and listen to me babble on. But if you do want to, if there is something you do want to talk about, not just cooking, you want to chat with me, feel free to reach out and grab me. I've kind of been hanging out over here near Peter Washington in the computer, just because I found an empty chair over there, and that was a place for put my fan. Because I like a lot of probably you folks, I have temperature regulation problems from the Parkinson's and the medication, so I frequently get very hot, and so she bought a battery-operated Ryobi fan from Lowe's or Home Depot. Home Depot, and we take it to a lot of stuff like this, and it's amazing what this battery-operated fan can do and how much it really makes my life more comfortable.
And how wonderful.
And so that's one of the tips for today. And if anybody wants to see it, I'll show it to you over there. It's a really great thing to have when we're out doing stuff, and I'm not in the AC. Okay,
We good?
I think so.
All right. How about a big hand for Jerry and Janice, folks? A little bit of the cooking and chopping demonstration here. And of course, our continuing, our lighter look at living with Parkinson's. And at this point, I think our next, oh, wow, wait, hang on. Let's see. Another question. Are there any other handy kitchen gadgets that Jerry or Janice have come across in their time cooking with Parkinson, besides knives and cutting boards?
What would you say our favorite things are?
Well, this is just any kitchen. The one very important tool in any kitchen
Oh,
is a blue paper towel.
these,
Blue paper towels?
Blue paper towels.
these
Okay.
are the shop towels.
Shop towels.
Shop towels,
Yeah.
got it.
Still have regular Scott white towels, but these things, I can do, they clean up a mess. I can use them again and again. I'm mad at the company now because their rolls are getting smaller and smaller. And, buy them at Costco in a package.
I'm
But
trying to-
that is the tool I use all day.
I would say one of the things that I like, it's a variation on something that you find in any kitchen, and it's a mixing bowl, but it's the one that I use for a lot of different things. Actually, it's probably about 12 inches in diameter. No, not 12, probably about 8 or 9 inches in diameter, but it looks like a mixing or a measuring cup. And so I mix all sorts of things in it because it's got a nice handle on it where I can pick it up, so I don't have to worry about bowls. If I'm doing something like if I'm mixing, and a lot of times your bowls have a tendency to walk around, I can grab the handle and hold it in place as I mix. I use it for making guacamole. We use it for quite a bit because it's you have the nesting mixing bowls that are all inside each other. It actually fits right on top, and so it's always convenient to grab the handle and pull it out and use it. Pop it into the dishwasher.
What you're going to do when something happens to it.
Yeah, she asked me what I'm going to do when something happens to it. I found another mixing bowl that had a handle on it. It's just not the same. So if this one breaks, which is inevitable, it probably will. I'll probably drop it. But other than that, we don't use a lot of really unique things. We do have a good variety of Calphalon because became big fans of them. In fact, when I retired out of the military, we invited about 500 people, and we had a goodly number show up. We had 22 people from off island come, and so the day after
Most of them are related to it.
yeah, most of them are related to me. The day after, we invited them all over to the house for brunch. So we had a big brunch, and we knew having a big crowd like that, for one of the things we wanted to cook, we needed a big skillet. Well, the biggest skillet that is normally available is about a 12 or 13 inch. I happened to find on Calphalon.com one that was 16 or 18 inches. This thing is a monster.
Wow.
And love that. We don't use it very often, obviously, because make enough in there that it'd feed about half the people here. Yeah. But it's really a great piece of gear to have for every once in a while. But
our friend Gary, who was the speaker at his retirement, he said he had skillet envy. So we sent him one.
So we bought him one and sent him one. But we use regular skillets. A couple of ones that I've gotten more use lately is they're about 12 inches around, but instead of being slope-sided, they're basically vertical. But they're only about an inch high. The sides are only an inch high, but they're great for cooking gyoza, pot stickers. Because I don't do mine in water. What I do is a little bit of olive oil and a couple tablespoons of butter. And when I say a little bit of olive oil, what I do is I have this one bottle that has a pour spout on it, and I run it twice around the outside of the pan. Then I throw a couple tablespoons of butter in it, and that butter olive oil mix is really nice for cooking gyoza. And I throw them in with a splatter screen on top. And pot stickers gyoza, you can even do ravioli that way instead of doing ravioli. Because sometimes if you've had ravioli in the freezer for a while, it might crack on you. and if you throw it into the water, all the insides will float out and make this nasty mess. So you fry it instead, just kind of like I do with pot stickers, and throw it in, let it sit there for a while till it browns on one side, turn it over, let it go till it browns on the other side. Maybe 10 minutes and it's pretty much done. Quick and easy dinner for a couple people at home. Seeing somebody reminded me of one thing I do want to talk a little bit about.
Sure.
Is silverware and choice of silverware for normal eating. We've some of the companies are putting out weighted silverware to help steady you out, and there's various ones. Amneal's gave some away, and we've given some of those away. But one of the high school students that we're actually teamed up with right now has taken regular silverware and manufactured a piece that slides on the handle to make it easier to handle. And so I've given him some things to think about in his design, but we're probably going to get back together and put that out. And if he comes back with more and asks for testing, I'll put it out on the Jerry's Corner and see if anybody wants to help out on testing some of this silverware. Give you an opportunity to try something different to help you eat, but it also help these budding inventors out at the same time. And so there's various different silverwares that you can look at. Kind of like a lot of things, it kind of depends on what you need.
All right, one last comment, Jerry, and that is you've mentioned Jerry's Corner for those who are online, or even for those of you here. Easiest way to find it online.
The Hawaii Parkinson Association website, which is parkinsonshawaii.org, and it's right on the front page, kind of down in the lower left. And in our website, I know folks have had trouble with various aspects. We're working on that. We've got a new web designer that's trying to fix a lot of our problems, so please be patient with us. It's been a 3-year pain in my okole, but we are going to get it fixed, and that's definitely one of the better pieces that we're adding, that was recently added on.
All right.
All right.
All right. Jan, Jerry, thank you very much once again for this demonstration. All right.